Hi, I'm back with a quick video. In the last video, we created this entire counter application using HTML and CSS and JavaScript. I would recommend that if you haven't, before watching this one, you should watch the part one. I'll link that down in the description. So right now, let's say if I were to make the count, let's say -4, and then refresh, it's not being persisted across different sessions. So like refreshing starts a new session in the browser, so it is no longer there. So what local storage will allow us is that we can persist this across different browser sessions. So I would recommend that if you want some in-depth details around what local storage is, I would recommend that you should check this MDN documentation page. I'll link it down in the video description. So let's get into how we can persist this counter across different browser sessions. So to access the local storage API, we can type in local storage, and then there are a few methods that we can access on the local storage object. So first off, we are going to look at SetItem, and as the name goes, it allows us to set items into the local storage. So it receives or expects two arguments. So the first one is the key, that is gonna be the name of the data that we want to be stored in the local storage, and second up we have the value, and that is also gonna be a string. So let's say if we were to provide something as, let's say, a number or an array or an object, JavaScript is gonna automatically convert this into a string. So in our case, we're gonna store count into the local storage. So I'll name the key count, and then I'll store the variable count into it. Now count here is of type number, so the browser is gonna convert it into a string. So I'll reload. To access the local storage tab, what we can do in Firefox is that we can right click and then select inspect element, and here in the storage tab we will see these tabs, and here we can find local storage, and here is this domain, and as you can see that the count is being set to 0. So what happened here is that when we refreshed, the browser first downloaded this and started rendering these tags, and then it found the script tag and it loaded this JavaScript file, and then it executed it from top to bottom. So when this line got executed, it set a key called count with the value of count to the local storage. So next up, let's say like if the value is already being stored in local storage, use that instead of this 0. So for that, we have to like explore another method that we have on local storage, and that is get item. And as the name goes, it allows us to fetch items from the local storage, and it receives a single argument, and that is the key, and it has to be case sensitive. So this will, like if this count key exists in local storage, it will return whatever is in the value here, and otherwise it will return undefined. So I'm gonna wrap this in a console log, and let's reload the browser and head over to the console. So as you can see, we've got 0 back because it was stored there. So let's comment this line out. I think we don't have to comment this. Let's go to the storage tab and delete this count key. Now the count is no longer there, so when it will try to access this, will get undefined because this is at line number 1 and we're setting it on line number 7. So the key count won't exist until the line number 7 is being executed. So let's reload. I think it's taking time because of the font takes some time to load. So we've got no, sorry, I was wrong. We haven't got undefined. Instead we got null, which is different than undefined in some ways. So far we have looked at how we can get and set items from the local storage. So we need these two to make the app functional, like to persist this count variable across different browser sessions. So let's say like the user changes, let's first set this count variable to the local storage. Right now it's being set only once. So like right at the start when the script is being loaded, what we want to do here is that update it inside of the local storage whenever one of these buttons is clicked. So let's do that. So I'm gonna copy this line and paste it in all of the 3 event handlers for these 3 buttons. Now let's reload and head over to the storage tab. Here we have the count being set to 0 because of this line, which was executed in the previous session. So I'll now say +1. Now as you can see, there is a splash which indicates that the value is getting changed. So now it's 7, I can subtract 1 from it. Now it's 4, I can reset it to 0. So the data is being persisted. So let's leave it at 7 and refresh. Actually what's happening here is that we are setting it here to 0. So what we want to do instead is that we want to use what is in the local storage, or otherwise set it to 0. So I'll reload and then bring the count to we actually have to convert this into a number. For that we can use parseInt and then give it this. That will do it. Yeah, so now the count is 11. Now I'm gonna refresh, so the count stays 11. So here what we are essentially doing is that we're checking, like we're asking local storage to get us an item with the key named count, and if that exists we are parsing that because local storage only stores strings in it. So we are coercing that into an integer and we're assigning that to the count if it exists. Otherwise we're like using 0 as a fallback. So for instance, let's say a user is coming to this application for the first time. They won't have anything stored in the local storage for sure, so it will get set to 0. So yeah, that's it. So I can bring it to 12 and then refresh, it stays 12. I can subtract them and it stays that. Now here you can see that we're repeating a lot of code in all of these 3 event handlers. What we can do is that we can make an event, make a function for refactoring this code so that we only write it once. So here I'll call that, maybe let's call it SetCount, because it will like set the count, like render the count here into this element and also store it to the local storage. So SetCount would maybe a good name. So const SetCount, and it is gonna receive one argument which is gonna be count, and then we can do this stuff. Inside of it. So whatever count is passed in, we're gonna set the text contents for this span to it, and then we're also gonna store that to the local storage. So here instead of writing this, I'll just call SetCount with the current count. I'll do the same for these 2 event handlers. Now let's refresh. So I've changed, let's say, the count to 24 and I'll refresh. So 24 is being persisted. Let's bring it to something like 5 and then refresh. As you can see, it's being persisted. Now let's close it and then reopen the file. I have that in my projects directory. Count, I'll open this inside of my browser. So as you can see, it is 5. So thanks for watching and have a great day. I'm sorry that I haven't still bought a new better microphone. Sorry for the noise in the background. That's due to a fault in the microphone. And yeah, thanks for watching.